When you're leading a complex team, it rarely feels like a neat org chart. It feels like a lot of people in a lot of places pulled in a lot of directions at the same time. Different functions, different stakeholders, different priorities, even different definitions of what good looks like. On paper, that can look impressive. In real life, it can feel tiring and confusing. I'm Jen Kronberger, and this is Brave in 5. Relational intelligence across complex teams is about paying attention to how all of that actually works between human beings, not just on the slide. Most of us can draw the official picture, the roles, the titles, the lines, who reports to whom, but there's another picture most teams carry quietly. It's the one that shows who people really go to for help, who they avoid, who they go around, who they trust to tell them the truth, who ends up translating between groups, and who gets left out until decisions are already made. That's the relational map. And in complex teams, that map is often the one that decides whether work feels possible or impossible. If you only lead to the org chart, you miss the places where things get stuck. You miss the conversations that never happen, the people who quietly disconnect, the patterns that repeat because no one's looking at how relationships are actually working. So relational intelligence starts with very simple questions like, who are the connectors on this team? Who ends up in the middle when something is tense? Who seems to know what's really going on? Who rarely gets asked, even though they're deeply affected by what we decide? Now, layer in pressure. Complex teams are usually serving more than one leader. There are competing metrics, different leaders wanting different things, deadlines that don't line up neatly. When pressure rises, all those differences get louder, and people protect their own priorities first. They start to see other teams as obstacles instead of partners, and they lean more on side channels and back doors to get things done. And they rely heavily on a few steady humans to keep everyone connected and calm. That's you, isn't it? If you look at your world and think, I know exactly who these steady humans are, that's already part of the relational map. Relational intelligence asks you to notice those patterns instead of pretending they're just the way it is. Leading complex teams with this lens means you pay attention to moments that are easy to ignore. You notice who speaks up and who doesn't. You notice who is always asked to smooth things over between groups. And you notice who carries a lot of emotional and relational work without anyone calling it work. You also notice where trust feels strong and where it's actually thinned out. And then you do something with what you see. Maybe you invite someone into a conversation who's usually on the receiving end of decisions. Maybe you say out loud, we keep asking this team to fix what other teams break, so it becomes something the group can own together. And maybe you recognize the person who's quietly become the bridge between groups and ask what they need instead of assuming they can keep carrying it. Relational intelligence isn't about being endlessly nice. It's about being honest about how your team really functions as a human system and then leading that system with care. So here's the invitation for this week. Think of one complex team you're part of. It might be your leadership team. It might be a cross-functional project. It might be a multi-region effort or a matrixed group that always feels complicated. Once you have it in mind, sit with a few questions. Who do people turn to when things get messy or unclear? Who never seems to hear about things until they're already decided? Who's doing quiet relational work, translating, calming, connecting, without much recognition? And where do you see trust and pressure both running high at the same time? And then choose one small move. You might check in with one of those relational hubs and acknowledge what they're holding. Invite someone into an upcoming conversation who's usually left out. Slow a decision long enough to ask, who else is impacted by this? Maybe name a pattern once you've noticed, not to blame, but to bring it into the light. You're not trying to untangle the whole system in 5 minutes. You're practicing a way of seeing, and a way of leading, one that respects how complex teams feel from the inside. Because brave leadership in these environments isn't only about managing priorities on a spreadsheet. It's about tending the human web those priorities are sitting in. Stay human, lead brave.